Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment.
You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Happy mask salesman.
I'm Kira, and you may notice that Kyle isn't here today. That is because we are doing Legend of Zelda. So we decided to have a Zelda fan, since Kyle is definitely not a fan of any fantasy, and our friend. So introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Rose. I'm a disabled woman, transgender. I'm a friend of your usual hosts. I'm mostly on Twitter. My handle is lumpin_Rose. I mostly dabble in political theory, humor, and video games. Whenever I feel like doing anything video game related, it's usually on Elder Scrolls lore. But today our subject is Zelda.
And we're doing Zelda the timeline together. So let's get into it. Rose has very well organized the timeline chronologically, correct?
Yes, it took a little bit, but I managed to get it done.
All right, so do you want to start or should I start?
Do you want to go into our history with Zelda first, I suppose?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I haven't played most of the Zelda games. I did play Wind Waker quite a bit, and that was like one of my favorite ones that I've ever played. And I've also played some of the 3DS titles, and I also played quite a bit of Breath of the Wild, and that's my experience. So I have no idea about the lore. This is all going to be a learning experience for me personally.
Meanwhile, my first introduction was like most people. I played Ocarina of Time when I was a kid, and I got really into it, and Majora's Mask is always going to be my favorite. I've played pretty much every mainstream Zelda game minus Wind Waker, but I know plenty of the content from Let's Plays.
All right. Well, so let's get started with the timeline. Do you want to go, or should I go?
I can go first.
All right, go.
The beginning of creation is described in both Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, describing how the three goddesses begin creation. Din, the goddess of power, forms the earth and the soil. Nehru, goddess of wisdom, creates order itself. And Furore, goddess of courage, brings life to the earth to follow order. The goddesses depart the earth, leaving behind a gift-worthy exit, the Triforce, which resides within the sacred realm. The three triangles, which, when united and touched by one purer of heart, grants any one wish. But, when touched by one not pure of heart, will separate into three pieces and embed themselves within three people into the world who represent the ideas of power, courage, and wisdom the most. Typically, the Triforce of Power ends up within Ganon, the Triforce of Wisdom in Zelda herself, and courage within our hero, Link.
All right. So I had no idea that this is the creation myth of that world of Hyrule.
Well, they only explain it twice, and it's very brief.
Oh, I see.
And now we're getting into Skyward Sword and its creation story.
Oh, because it happens before a lot of the others? Because didn't Skyward Sword come out a lot later than a lot of the others?
Skyward Sword was released in, I believe, 2011, and it is first chronologically.
Oh, okay. The era of goddess Hylia begins. Hylia, a divine entity, was entrusted with the Triforce to guard it. At some point, the Demon King, Demise, and his army of demons would rise from the depths of the earth and make the world bend to his will. Hylia sent all surviving humans to a small island on earth and threw it into the sky, the Triforce being sent with them. The Triforce would lay beneath the statue of Hylia herself on the island in the sky before sealing Demise away on the sealed grounds within a beast known as the Imprisoned, a beast you fight gruelingly multiple times in Skyward Sword. Hylia, badly injured, knew the Triforce could not be wielded by the gods, including herself, so she stripped herself of her divinity and placed her soul within a mortal who would later be able to wield it. This mortal was Zelda, the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia. Before this, she forged the goddess sword and placed the spirit Fee within it to guide her chosen hero, whom would be revealed by whomever drew the sword from its pedestal on the island in the sky, now called Skyloft. She also kept behind a servant, Impa Sheikah, to watch over Demise's seal. That's interesting. Is this the first time you hear of Impa?
Impa has been in the Zelda games since the very first Zelda, I believe. Maybe the second?
So Impa is a reoccurring character like the others?
Yes, but I believe it's mostly just a title for the head of the Sheikah who guards Zelda herself.
Oh, I see. So it's a title that gets passed down.
I believe so, but I don't think they've really gotten that far into
because I know there's Impa in Breath of the Wild.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. All right, so...
Thousands of years in the Sky Era, the seal keeps the imprisoned, the seal demise, and it begins to crack and weaken. Hylia is reborn into Zelda, and the hero into Link, a student at the Knight Academy, who pulls the goddess sword from its hilt, solidifying himself as the hero. During the wing ceremony, Zelda is hit by a mysterious tornado that causes her to fall off her loft wing and onto the surface. She then goes on a journey to purify her body at various springs with the guide of Impa. Link follows after her and goes on a journey to save his friend, defeating many enemies and being stopped at various turns by a demon known as Girahim. Link then goes through a gate of time, travels into the past where he knows Zelda awaits, arriving shortly after the goddess has sent the humans into the sky and sealed Demise. Hylia knew her power could not keep Demise sealed forever, so Zelda blesses the sword into the true Master Sword before sealing herself into a crystal for 1,000 years, which only then weakens at the beginning of the timeline of our game. Link travels back to his original time, finds the Triforce, and wishes for Demise's destruction. Skyloft begins to descend and fall to the earth, and destroys the imprisoned with the help of the Triforce, and as he's trying to escape his seal again. Zelda finally awakes from her deep sleep before Girahim, the servant of Demise, kidnaps Zelda, taking her back in time, and successfully revives Demise after the imprisoned swallows Zelda's soul. Girahim transforms into Demise's sword, much like Fee is the spirit of the Master Sword, and he and Link duel. He's defeated, and Demise creates a curse, where the three of them, Link, Zelda, and Demise, are forever bound by fate to return to Earth once again as reincarnations. The remains of the Demon King are absorbed by the Master Sword.
Wow, okay, so is this the start of, like, the reoccurring trio? Like Zelda, Ganon, and Link? Except it's like Demise this time is Ganon?
He starts out as Demise, and he later reincarnates into a being known as Ganon, sometimes Ganondorf, but we'll get into that.
All right, cool.
The whole journey of getting the Triforce is an absolute pain, but it's, I believe, the very first time that the player actually gets the full Triforce in their hands, rather than just the Triforce of Courage.
Oh, I can understand that because, like, Link actually made the wish.
Mm-hmm. All right, you can go next.
Link and crew return back to their original timeline and plunge the Master Sword into its pedestal, sealing it away for the next hero, and Fee enters a sleep without end. Impa remains behind to watch over the sword and make sure Demise does not return, and our story ends. This brings up two problems. The first is that the Master Sword has remnants of the Demon King within it that are taken to the original timeline, a timeline where Demise is killed. This means within Skyward Sword, there's already a timeline split before the split in Ocarina of Time, one where Demise is destroyed and one where he is not. Does the curse take place in the past, where Demise was revived, or in the original timeline where Zelda and Link go back to? Okay, that's interesting. So they managed to... Could you explain the part where they seal away Demise again?
So, they managed to seal away Demise in their own they defeat him in their normal timeline, wishing for Demise to be defeated, and then Girahim kidnaps Zelda, takes her back 1,000 years, and manages to revive Demise 1,000 years in the past. So,
is that what you play through during the game?
Yes.
Okay, so you defeat him again,
Yes.
and then you go back to the original timeline where the wish took place.
Yes, but the Master Sword is taken with you, so I'm unsure if following timeline takes place where Demise was wished away from existence, or where Link duels him to the death. It's never explained, and it's something that's...
That's interesting because they were when Demise was revived, they were cursed to come back again and again, right?
Yes, but which timeline does the resurrections take place, where they're revived over and over?
I think it would have to be the one where he was revived, right? Because that's the only one where they got cursed.
It's never explained.
So you're not sure which one he cursed them in?
No, but Nintendo doesn't even acknowledge a timeline split within Skyward Sword.
Which is ridiculous because, there are different timelines. All right. You go next.
Yep. After Skyward Sword, the era of chaos begins where people sought after the Triforce. Rauru, no one knows how to pronounce his name, builds the Temple of Time over the ruins of the sealed temple, which contains the only gateway to the sacred realm, and he seals it, requiring 3 sacred stones and the Master Sword to unlock it, as well as the Ocarina of Time. And at some point, an ancient race known as the Twily are banished to the realm, the Twily being descendants of the Interlopers.
What were the Interlopers?
They were a ancient tribe that tried to wield the Triforce, creating a whole war which was started before the goddesses intervened with 4 light spirits to seal them away into the realm known as the Twilight Realm, which we'll get into later.
Oh, okay. And that happened way before any of the other events started?
It takes place after Skyward Sword, but before Ocarina of Time.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do the next one then?
Yep, we're doing that now.
All right, go.
At some point after the events of Skyward Sword, a tribe of dark sorcerers, the Interlopers, sought to claim the Triforce for their dark deeds from the Sacred Realm. The Interloper Wars begin, and soon the 4 light spirits were ordered to intervene and sealed the dark power of the Interlopers into an artifact known as the Fused Shadow, which will appear later in Twilight Princess, and the Sacred Realm is officially sealed by the sage known as Rauru, who builds the Temple of Time. The era of prosperity begins, and the kingdom of Hyrule is started by the descendants of Zelda, who become the royal family within Hyrule Castle, being built over the temple to watch over it.
Oh, I see. Soon the Force era begins. The events of Minish Cap and Four Swords begins. The hero of men, a reincarnation of Link, as well as the tiny Picori help to defeat the evil demon and Minish Vati with the help of the talking magical cap Ezla.
It's quite a silly story.
Yeah. Along the way, Link forges the Force Sword embedded with the 4 elements, which can split the wielder into 4 copies. Vati is defeated atop Dark Hyrule Castle, the curses placed on Ezlo and Zelda are broken, and Zelda wishes for Hyrule to be back to normal with the help of the Mage's Cap, a cap stolen by Vati earlier. Vati is reborn without his memories, declares himself the Wind Mage, and a hero appears with the Force Sword and seals Vati within it and enshrining it in the Force Sword Sanctuary. After many generations, Vati breaks free, kidnaps Zelda, and Vati is sealed again. What does that mean? Like, how is he sealed again?
2 games take place in between Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time. They are Minish Cap and Four Swords. I believe it's Adventures, or is it the normal Four Swords?
Oh, okay, so the first time they defeat Vati is Minish Cap?
I believe so, yes.
And then Four Swords.
The story is quite basic compared to the mainstream titles.
Yeah. All right, you want to do this next one?
Yeah.
All right, go.
And now we enter the Hyrulean Civil War. A Hylian woman flees to Kokiri Forest with her little boy, Link. She entrusts her child to the great Deku Tree and dies. The wise old tree raises the boy as a Kokiri, lying to him about being a Hylian. The Civil War ends and Link grows to be a young boy without a fairy, of which all other Kokiri have. The boy begins having nightmares of a mysterious red-haired man who terrifies him, and he awakens and begins his journey at the beginning of Ocarina of Time. He's finally entrusted with a fairy, Navi, and regains an ancient emerald from the tree's insides before he dies, from a curse placed on him by the red-haired man. This emerald is one required to open the seal to the sacred realm, as mentioned earlier. Throughout his journey, he acquires all three.
Wait, he died though. What?
Yes, the tree dies. It's a very tragic death.
Oh, the tree dies.
Yes.
Okay.
Before leaving the forest, of which Kokiri cannot leave without dying, as they were told, Link says goodbye to his dear friend Saria. He goes to Hyrule Castle as instructed by the Great Deku Tree before his death to meet Zelda, who tells him she has had a prophetic vision about the red-haired man in the window that she and Link spy on. He is the king of the Gerudo, Ganondorf. Her father refuses to listen to her visions, and so she and Link decide to find the Triforce before Ganondorf does. Link gathers the two remaining stones from the Gorons and the Zora, and returns to the castle only to see Zelda and Impa fleeing off a horse from the castle. She throws the Ocarina of Time into the moat around the castle before Ganondorf storms by to follow her, stopping only to observe the young, frightened boy. He obtains the ocarina and proceeds to the Temple of Time, opening the door with the sacred stones, pulling the Master Sword from its pedestal, and delving into a deep sleep for 7 years to become an adult and finally awaken as the hero of time. During his sleep, Ganondorf has snuck into the sacred realm, and, now open because of Link, he seizes the Triforce, which splits into 3 pieces as described earlier, when an impure one touches it. Link is greeted upon waking by Raoul, who sealed the temple, and describes what has transpired. Link appears in the future and is greeted by Sheik, a mysterious man. It's revealed during Link's sleep that Ganondorf has left Hyrule in ruins, and the sacred realm has been transformed into the evil realm by his dark intent. Link goes on his journey to awaken the remaining sages, of which Raoul is one. After the awakening of the other 5 sages, Sheik reveals himself to be the 7th sage, Zelda herself, which is one of the biggest plot twists in the series.
Oh.
Ganondorf pops in and kidnaps her, taking her to his castle. Link follows, defeats Ganondorf, who then transforms into Ganon, who is defeated as well, and Zelda now freed. Ganon is sealed within the evil realm by the 7 sages and the Master Sword's power.
Wow. Okay, so does Sheik accompany you during some of the game and then you don't find out that it's Zelda?
Yes, Sheik reveals themselves after you return 7 years into the future, and assists you throughout the game to awaken the rest of the sages, and is very mysterious and can really handle their own in a fight, and they really prove that. It's unfortunate that once they reveal themselves as Zelda, they're immediately kidnapped and don't get to fight back.
Yeah, but that's how the story goes. So what happens now is complicated. Zelda uses the hidden powers of the Ocarina of Time to send Link back to the past to live out his childhood free and happy. Link leaves Kokiri Forest once again and goes back to Hyrule Castle and warns Zelda and the king of what happened, and Ganondorf is arrested and will appear later. So now we have 3 timelines. The first timeline, the child timeline, in which the hero goes back in time and has Ganondorf arrested. The timeline where Zelda stays behind and rebuilds Hyrule is the adult timeline, and a hypothetical timeline called the fallen hero timeline, in which the hero time dies and Ganon wins. Navi is guiding Fairy, then leaves him behind. I see.
Yes, this is where we get into the timeline split, which is a hotly debated topic within the Zelda community.
Why?
Most people hate it. They think it's a giant cop-out and was rushed upon revealing the official Zelda timeline.
I see. So this happens in Ocarina of Time?
Yes.
All right.
Now we're going to get into the child timeline. Link, distraught by the leaving of his friend Navi, decides to search for her.
Wait. When did she leave him?
At the end of the game.
Oh,
She's been there the whole time for him, and she just up and disappears without him, and it's never explained why.
At the end of Ocarina of Time?
Yes.
Then what is this?
You'll see.
Oh,
You'll see.
Oh, what is this game?
We're getting into Majora's Mask.
Oh, I see.
He wanders into the Lost Woods and discovers the Skull Kid, a friend he'd met earlier on his journey, wearing a mysterious mask. His horse, Epona, is stolen from him, and Link is transformed into a Deku Scrub, and a fairy is left behind. Link exits the woods into a mysterious building where the Happy Mask Salesman, another previous character from Ocarina of Time, greets him and tells him that the Skull Kid has stolen his mask, and asks him to bring it to him within 3 days' time. Link agrees, and the salesman says he can transform Link back into his normal form if he has the Ocarina of Time. He exits the building and finds himself in the town of Termina, the building he was in, the clock tower in the center, and discovers that the moon is falling to Earth, with a tremendously horrendous face on it as it descends. Link gains access to the top of the clock tower on the final day, confronts Skull Kid, snatches the Ocarina of Time, and the companion's fairy of Skull Kid, Tail, helps to describe the 4 beings from the swamp, the mountain, ocean, and canyon. Link plays the Song of Time with the Ocarina of Time's power, and is sent backward 3 days to the beginning when he exited the clock tower, and is taught the Song of Healing by the salesman, which he uses to transform Link back into his original form, and as a prize for doing so, a mask of a Deku Scrub that allows him to change back and forth at any time. The salesman asks if Link obtained the mask that he asked for, and he says no, to which the salesman becomes furious and warns Link about the stolen mask, Majora's Mask, a mask that holds the power of an ancient dark tribe sealed within it long ago, and Link once again leaves the tower. Link goes to a dungeon, defeats a boss, obtains a mask from it, along with various other masks and side quests, goes back in time to day 1 again, and repeats the process 3 more times to obtain more masks. Along the way, learning of the 4 giants. This game is the most depressing and despair-inducing game in the franchise. One of the masks requires you reunite with a separated married couple within seconds before the moon crashes into the earth. They say their goodbyes, but before you witness the tragedy that will occur, you travel back 3 days once again, and everything is brought back to the way it was. You keep your masks, and only your masks, though you could store money in a bank, which carries over when you go back in time.
Okay, that's interesting. So, it's repeating the timeline as many times as it takes for you to complete this quest, which is getting the mask from Skull Kid.
Yes. Along the way, you complete various tasks, and once you go back 3 days in time, you just witness that everyone's depressed again, and it's absolutely tragic. And
yeah, because they don't know what happened.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Link goes back to the clock tower a final time and uses the song he learned along the way, the Oath to Order, to summon the 4 giants and stop the moon from falling. Skull Kid is knocked unconscious, and Majora's Mask detaches itself from Skull Kid, hovering in the air, warps inside the moon, possesses the moon itself to consume Termina whole, and Link follows him inside. Within the moon itself, Link is greeted with blue skies, an endless green field, and a single tree in the distance surrounded by 5 children. 4 of them wear the masks of the bosses defeated earlier, which require him to give up his 4 boss masks. If he gives up all masks that can possibly be acquired, you are given the 5th child who wears Majora's Mask, an ancient mask of power known as the Fierce Deity's Mask, which transforms Link into a being of great power that can easily defeat Majora himself, of which he does. Why the child gives him this powerful mask is unknown. Majora is defeated, the moon returns to the sky, and Link awakens at dawn of a new day, where Skull Kid is reunited with his 2 fairy friends and the 4 giants. Majora's Mask is returned to the salesman, who says that evil no longer resides within the mask, and leaves. Link leaves on Epona back into the forest, and Termina is never seen again.
This is an absolutely depressing story that sort of turns out seemingly well, but there are theories about the idea that Termina was a figment of his imagination, and we'll see what happens to our dear hero of time in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, Link himself dies. Either he actually encountered Termina and died afterwards, or he died and Termina was nothing but his personal afterlife. Either way, his spirit is doomed to wander the earth until his regrets of being unable to pass on the lessons of his life as a hero to his descendants, and feels lamented that he was not remembered as a hero upon going back in time. This hero's shade encounters his descendant in Twilight Princess as a white wolf and teaches him his sword techniques, which he learned when he was the hero of time, and appears to Link in a seemingly other realm. The hero of time appears almost like a Stalfos covered in bulking armor and missing his right eye.
So he appears back as a wolf?
He appears as a wolf to Link while I believe it's in the Twilight Realm, and then he's transported to some mysterious realm that's not named to learn the sword techniques. But this was confirmed in, I believe, Hyrule Historia? So this is canon.
When he teaches him the sword techniques, he turns like a Stalfos with armor, missing an eye?
No, Link appears to... Well, the hero of time, Link, appears to his descendant as a Stalfos.
Oh, okay.
So there's a thing within the forest within Ocarina of Time where if you enter as an adult and you die, you become a Stalfos.
Oh, okay.
It's absolutely depressing.
But what about the wolf? What's the difference between the Stalfos and the wolf?
He appears to Link in the normal world as the wolf, as a white wolf. I don't know why as a wolf, but he just does. And then maybe Link goes unconscious and then sees his ancestor in his head. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, okay. So those are two different versions of versions of him that died and are coming back to teach him.
I suppose you could say that.
Yeah.
Do you want to read the rest? It's quite long.
Oh, wow. Okay. Finally, we get to what happens after Link informs the king and Zelda of Ganondorf's treachery. He's arrested and taken to Arbiter's grounds to be executed. So is this the other timeline? The timeline where he went back and
No, this is when Zelda continues to bring up the kingdom and try and... no, it is when he goes back in time. I'm sorry.
Okay,
so he goes back in time. He informs Zelda and the king of what happened, and Ganondorf's arrested. And he's about to be executed.
So does this happen after his whole Majora's Mask adventure?
Either after or during. We aren't quite sure, but we're getting into Twilight Princess grounds.
Okay, so finally we get to what happens after Link informs the king and Zelda of Ganondorf's treachery. He is arrested and taken to Arbiter's grounds to be executed. They impale him with the Sword of Sages. They discover he has the Triforce of Power, which saves his life, and they use the Mirror of Twilight to banish him into the Twilight Realm after the failed execution. Now in the Twilight Realm, Ganondorf appears to be a Twili named Zant as a shade, blessing him with power in exchange for freedom, and to merge the worlds of light and twilight to create darkness. Zant agrees, is given great power and overthrows the Twilight Princess Midna and becomes the Usurper King, transforming Midna into an imp. Zant invades the light world, Midna escaping as well, and Zant brings an army of Twili at his side and invades Hyrule Castle. He tells Zelda to either surrender or die, and she surrenders, dropping her sword to her side. Link begins his journey as a peasant in Ordon village and is soon trapped in the twilight as a wolf. Midna greets him wearing a piece of the broken fused shadow mentioned earlier, containing the powers of the interlopers, and frees him on the condition he help her recover the fused shadow pieces and defeat Zant. He agrees, and they journey to find Princess Zelda within her tower. She explains her defeat, and they leave to collect the fused shadow pieces. Link goes back to and restores the land to its light, which had been taken over by Twilight, and is restored to his normal form. They recover the pieces of the fused shadow, and Zant appears before them. One of the light spirits intervenes, and Zant defeats it before trapping Midna and taking the pieces of the fused shadow. Link is defeated in wolf form, and a crystal placed by Zant into his forehead to keep him that way permanently. He then sends Midna into the light realm, where she starts to die, and Link sent in wolf form with her. Link carries Midna on his back to Princess Zelda to heal her, who then gives up her very soul to save Midna and allow her to travel the light realm before she fades and Midna mourns her friend, but before doing so, to seek out the Master Sword in the Sacred Grove. Zelda told them that?
Zelda wants them to seek out the Master Sword, I believe, yes.
Okay, so they literally go through this whole quest to get all those pieces, and then are defeated by Zant, and then they have to, then Link's a wolf, and Midna's dying, so they do this.
Yes, she cannot travel the Light Realm without slowly dying, so they need Zelda's help. So Zelda just says, I'm going to give you my life, and allows her to travel freely.
Wow. They travel there, and Link pulls the sword from its pedestal, and is cursed by Zant is lifted, back in human form, but now able to transform between the two as often as he wants with the help of the crystal. They travel to the Arbiter's grounds to find the Mirror Twilight, only to find it shattered. They gather the pieces and enter the Twilight Realm, and Zant is defeated by our hero. Midna, in her anger, kills Zant and takes the fused shadow back from him after he boasts Ganon can revive him. Back at the castle now, which has been sealed with the triangular barrier, Midna uses the fused shadows to destroy the barrier and enter the castle to fight Ganon. Princess Zelda's lifeless body appears before them, being puppeted by Ganondorf, who uses her body to fight Link, who defeats Puppet Zelda. That's terrible.
It's absolutely traumatizing.
Midna uses the fused shadow to force Ganon out of her body and reforms in front of them, who reforms as a piggly beast and is defeated again before Zelda returns to life. Midna, why did she return to life?
You'll see in a sec.
Okay. Midna transports Link to Hyrule Field while she uses the fused shadow to attempt to defeat the reforming Ganon before them. Hyrule Castle is destroyed during the battle, and Ganondorf himself appears on a horse. He raises the fused shadow above his head and crushes it between his fingers, showing his power over the fused shadow. Link and Zelda face Ganondorf one last time, with Zelda being blessed with the light arrows by the 4 light spirits. Ganondorf is finally defeated in battle. He is impaled by the Master Sword in the same spot he was stabbed by the Sword of Sages, and calls upon the Triforce of Power to save his life once again. It rejects him, and an image of Zant appears, cracking his neck. Ganondorf dies standing in the middle of Hyrule Field. Midna returns to her original form before being an imp, goes back to the realm of Twilight, and the mirror is destroyed behind her forever.
So this is an absolutely amazing storyline, where we see Midna as this tiny, 2-3 foot tall imp, and then the curse on her is broken, and right after we think that she's dead, because Ganondorf appears on horseback after he's defeated her, and crushes the fused shadow in his palms to show his power over such a weak artifact that we thought was absolutely amazing. She gets to transform back into her original self after Ganondorf's death, and she's absolutely beautiful and a fan favorite.
So why did Zelda come back to life?
It's been a while. I think it was because Ganon's curse on her was broken, and she was able to return to herself after Midna gives her life back to her.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's still a rather confusing story even for me, but I absolutely love it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of years after the death of Ganondorf, his tribe, the Gerudo, had made peace with the citizens of Hyrule. However, Ganondorf is reborn within the Gerudo once again and steals a trident from an ancient pyramid. Steals it, my apologies, and steals a dark mirror as well from the Temple of Darkness, a mirror that was supposedly a prison for our dark tribe that long ago invaded the kingdom and could reflect the evil heart of its bearer, giving birth to demonic creatures. Perhaps the Mirror of Twilight was somehow reformed? Regardless, Four Swords Adventures occurs, and Vati is revived as well. Link takes the Four Swords, splits into four. Ganon uses Shadow Link to tear open the Dark World and pull the four heroes inside and turn them into Stelphos. They make their way back to Hyrule and defeat Vati and seal Ganon inside the Four Sword.
Oh, okay, so that mirror is what he uses to bring them into the Dark World or whatever.
Yes, I believe so. This is one of the games I have not played, so I had to research the story.
Yeah, I don't know Four Swords' story either.
I don't think most people do. So now we're getting into the adult timeline.
Do you want me to read it or?
I'll go.
Okay.
As a refresher, in the adult timeline, Ganon is sealed within the corrupted Sacred Realm and Dark World after the Triforce of Power, and the Triforce of Power following him. Zelda possesses the Triforce of Wisdom still, but after Link is sent back, the Triforce of Courage, unable to stabilize without an owner, shatters into 8 pieces which scatter Hyrule, and the Master Sword is returned by Zelda to its pedestal.
Wait a sec. When that Triforce of Power refused to revive Ganon, where did it go?
That was the end of Twilight Princess. We don't know where it went.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So now we have the era without a hero, and the seal keeping Ganon locked away breaks after ages passed and darkness sweeps over the land.
Why do they keep sealing him away with these, ineffective methods?
It's a common plot point.
Yeah, because, he keeps getting reborn, so even if they killed him, he comes back.
Yes, because it's part of the curse.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're getting into the Wind Waker and its subsequent games.
Oh, cool.
King Daphne's Nohansen Hyrule begs the gods to help him as there is no hero. The response? A great flood that sweeps away all of Hyrule and Ganon along with it. And only the tippy tops of mountains now surviving as islands on the surface within the Great Sea. The Triforce of Wisdom splits in 2. One remains with Princess Zelda on the surface, and the other within the King under the waves. Time passes. The half of the Triforce of Wisdom passed down from Zelda to Zelda. Hundreds of years later, the Wind Waker occurs, and the era of the Great Sea. Ganondorf escapes to the surface and kidnaps young girls in order to find the princess and steal the Triforce of Wisdom. King Daphne's surfaces as well as a boat, the King of Red Lions, a very odd plot point.
Oh, I didn't know that King Daphnis was the boat.
Yes. Link, with the help of the pirate Tetra, who is really Zelda, and the King of Red Lions, finishes the goddess trial and makes his way below the waves and retrieves the Master Sword. Link and Tetra save Link's sister, who was captured at the start of the game, and return to Hyrule beneath the waves, where the king reveals himself and Zelda's identity. And he reforges the Triforce of Wisdom, and Link, having recovered the pieces of the Triforce of Courage, when Link reunites with Ganondorf and Zelda, the Triforce assembles in full once again. Ganondorf attempts to touch it to make his wish, but before he can do so, the king does instead, wishing for Hyrule to be washed away forever. As the waves wash away Hyrule before them, Ganondorf, compared to his old, cruel, destructive, self-centered, maniacal self, is now a calm, level-headed, seemingly kinder Ganondorf. He even laments about his homeland and the winds of the Gerudo Desert and fights Link. And he swears to himself he will not kill Link, despite having the chance to do so several times. As they fight, the Master Sword is eventually thrusted into his skull, with his last words being, "The wind is blowing." He turns to stone. Link and Zelda are warped to the surface, leaving the Master Sword and Ganondorf's rocky corpse behind.
The era of the Great Voyage begins, wherein Tetra and Link, after the Wind Waker, the events of the Phantom Hourglass begins, for they discover a ghost ship and it whisks Tetra away. Link and his new friends he discovers along the way rescue their friend with the help of the Phantom Hourglass and the Phantom Sword, who defeat Bellum, Tetra's captor. Now Spirit Tracks take place, and Link and Zelda explore a new continent, which is named New Hyrule by Tetra. The era of rebirth begins, and 100 years later, Link and Tetra's sage's descendants defeat the Demon King Malladus in the Dark Realm. What game is that last one?
Those are Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks.
But defeat the Demon King Malladus in the Dark Realm?
Yes, Ganondorf and Ganon are never seen again. It's basically speculated that everything on Hyrule is just done. They're done, and now they're on a new continent, and there's some new Demon King pulling the strings.
Okay.
So now we get into the Fallen Hero timeline, where the hero basically has failed to defeat Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. He is killed by Ganondorf instead. He takes Zelda and Link's Triforce pieces and obtains the full Triforce. And at the last moment, Zelda and the sages seal Ganon and the Triforce within the corrupted Sacred Realm, the Dark World. The imprisoning war begins, and at some point the door to the realm reopens, and anyone who entered returned to Earth as Ganon's puppets. The door sealed once again, a link to the past occurs, a very beloved game, and a dark wizard, Aghanim, appears to stop dark misfortunes that plague Hyrule. The king appointed him priest and chief advisor to the kingdom and was declared the second coming of the sages. He uses his power to then usurp the king of Hyrule, corrupt his soldiers, and throw the descendants of the 6 sages, the 6 maidens, into the Dark World. Zelda, the 7th, is captured and uses telepathy to report to Link what has happened, and Aghanim plans to break the seal on Ganon and become ruler of light and dark. And he saves her. He goes on a journey to retrieve the Master Sword before Zelda is kidnapped and thrown into the Dark World. Link defeats Ganon in the Dark World in the Pyramid of Power in the center. He defeats Ganon, he finds the full Triforce, touches it, and makes his wish to restore peace to Hyrule. It is done, and peace is restored to the king, and the king is revived, and the Triforce is trusted to the royal family.
Oh, okay. So this happens, and it's like, oh, he defeats Ganon again, and Hyrule's back to normal.
Yeah, and this is a timeline with more of the traditional Zelda games, like the very first Zelda, and the ones all on NES.
And this is A Link to the Past?
Yes.
Okay. Link then trains himself, and on his voyage back to Hyrule is knocked unconscious. He goes on a journey within his dreams in Link's Awakening, and awakens in the waters adrift at sea. Now, Trinrova, who was previously a boss in Ocarina of Time, and Ganon's surrogate mothers plan to revive Ganon, which requires lighting 3 flames and having 3 sacrifices made. They send their minions, Onyx and Varan, to the lands of Holodrum and Labrina, respectively. Link at Hyrule Castle is beckoned by the Triforce, and upon touching it, it sends him to Holodrum. And the Oracle of Seasons and Ages begins, where he rescues the reincarnation of the goddess Din and defeats Onyx, and then is transported to Labrina and defeats Varan to save Naru. However, 2 flames have already been lit. Before the 3rd is lit, and before Twinrova sacrifices Zelda, Link defeats them in battle. At the last moment, Twinrova used themselves as sacrifices, and Ganon is revived. However, he is a mindless, thoughtless beast, as the ritual was incomplete, and is defeated and sealed in darkness. So is this, which game is this again?
These are Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of... I'm sorry, I can't remember the other one. These are games that I have not played and a lot of others have not played. I had to...
It says the Oracle of Seasons and the Oracle of Ages?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and these were side games?
Yes, they were done on the DS, I believe, and they're apparently really good. It's just a lot of people haven't played them, and... it's just a bit complicated, I guess. I'm honestly not as familiar with the Fallen Hero timeline games as I am with the others.
Alright.
At some point later, the Triforce is split and Ganon receives power, despite being sealed. Centuries later, a link between worlds takes place. The wizard Yuga invades Hyrule from Lorule, Hyrule's mirror copy, and seals the descendants of the 7 sages in paintings and kidnaps Zelda, taking her to Lorule. Link, with the help of a man named Ravio, traveled to Lorule. However, Ganon has been released. Yuga and Ganon fuse into one being and wishes to consume Lorule and Hyrule. Zelda's counterpart, Hilda, saves Link and asks of him to save the 7 sages across Lorule. He does so, and the Triforce of Courage is awoken within him. He travels back to Lorule Castle, and only to be stopped by Hilda, revealing that she sent Yuga on his task. She then steals the Triforce of Wisdom from Zelda's portrait, and reveals that Lorule's Triforce was destroyed long ago to stop the wars over its power. The kingdom fell, and monsters arose, and the world turned to dark. She learned of the Triforce in Hyrule, and made her plan to steal it. Link then defeats Ganon-Yuga fusion, and when Hilda demands he relinquish his Triforce of Power, he disobeys and takes her Triforce of Wisdom that she had stolen from Zelda, and becomes stronger. Link and Zelda fight Yuga Ganon once again, and Hilda hears all of this and still wishes to have the Triforce. However, Ravio reveals himself as Link's counterpart and loyal to Hilda, and begs her to let Link and Zelda go, and that they return to the Sacred Realm to find the Triforce whole. Link wishes for Lorule to be brought to its former glory, and his wish is granted.
Ah, okay, so this is Link Between Worlds.
Yes, it's supposed to be a sort of sequel to A Link to the Past.
Triforce Heroes then occurs, and the same Link travels to the kingdom of Hytopia and helps Princess Styla defeat the evil Lady Maud.
Yes, this story basically has no story.
The Golden Era occurs and Hyrule is at peace. However, the Era of Decline occurs when the king uses the Triforce to predict his death and decided to find someone to keep the Triforce safe to be its true possessor, but found no one, not even his own son, who met this criteria. The king splits the Triforce into its 3 parts before he dies. The prince mysteriously receives the Triforce of Power and searches endlessly for the Triforce of Courage. A wizard appears to him and to tell him his sister Zelda knows its location. He confronts her, demands its location, and Zelda refuses, and the angry wizard puts Zelda to sleep. However, the wizard died in the process. The prince places the eternally slumbering Zelda in the North Castle. Zelda, in her sleep, was the only one who knew the Triforce of Courage's location, and the kingdom breaks apart over the coming years. The original Legend of Zelda occurs, in which the Triforce's power stolen by Ganon's invading army onto Hyrule. The current Zelda split wisdom into 8 pieces and entrusted Impa to find a man of courage to destroy Ganon. Link fulfills the quest and defeats Ganon. So in the original, Zelda was a slumbering princess?
I don't believe the original Legend of Zelda explains this, maybe in the manual. Personally, I was unable to finish the original Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
But there are basically 2 Zeldas at this point, one which is eternally sleeping, and the other one that we just saw.
Okay.
But now the Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link occurs, in which Ganon's underlings who survived the attempt try to find Link and use his blood on the ashes of Ganon to revive him. Link at age 16 bears the mark of the Triforce and shows it to Impa, who reveals to Link the tale of the sleeping Zelda of old, and reveals the Triforce of Courage's location. He retrieves it from the Great Palace in the Valley of Death, defeats the Guardians and his own dark shadow, Shadow Link, and awakens Zelda. The Triforce is reunited again, and Ganon's revival is delayed.
All right.
Now we're getting into Breath of the Wild territory.
Okay.
You want to do this one? This is a little bit new to you, I believe.
All right. The placement of Breath of the Wild is said to be taking place according to Aonuma. Who's that?
I believe his name is Eiji Aonuma. He's a head developer for Zelda.
Okay. At the very end, but at which timeline is up for the player to decide, possibly hinting the 3 timelines converge at the end, or maybe the timeline placement doesn't matter, as the timelines take place 10,000 years prior to the game. The story of Ganon's endless death and revival have become myths. However, Calamity Ganon was revived and sealed 10,000 years ago with the help of advanced Sheikah technology. The king becomes paranoid the Sheikah will betray them, so he banishes them and seals the divine beast deep underground. Many Sheikah are peaceful, however, a split occurs and the tribe, the Yiga clan, vows vengeance. 100 years ago, he has arrived again and wreaks havoc. The ancient guardians from 10,000 years ago are awoken to serve Calamity Ganon, and the divine beasts were taken over as well. Link is injured in battle and sent to the Shrine of Resurrection to sleep for 100 years, and Zelda confronts Ganon to seal him, with herself being imprisoned as well. Link awakens, and the ghost of the long-dead king gives them information of what to do. Link frees the divine beasts, and they're taken over by their previous masters, friends to Link and Zelda, champions. Link obtains the Master Sword within Korok Forest. Link travels to the castle, defeats Calamity Ganon with the help of the Divine Beast, and Calamity Ganon turns into a beast of pure rage, Dark Beast Ganon, who has given up on his reincarnation to assume his impure rage form. He is defeated by Link and Zelda, who then re-establish the Kingdom of Hyrule. Are you sure they re-establish it? We don't technically know.
It was very much hinted at, I believe, at the end of the game or at some point. I don't remember where I found that info.
I think they travel together at the end, but I'm not sure what they're doing.
I know that you need to get all of the lost memories in order to get the real ending.
The ending where they're traveling together?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So, the whole timeline placement with Breath of the Wild was highly speculated upon its first announcement. Aonuma, I guess, decided that he might have been just sick of the complicated timeline and decided to merge all three or to just make it not matter anymore, which is why he places this game over 10,000 years after the events of whatever timeline it takes place at.
Okay, that's fine. About the Fallen Hero timeline, that was really confusing. Like, why does that happen? Like, why do the events of that happen?
That was because
why is it separate?
It's a hypothetical timeline in which Link is killed by Ganon in Ocarina of Time. So so he doesn't manage to defeat Ganon. He doesn't manage to go get his execution, and he isn't sealed by the Seven Sages. So he just tries to take over. So the Seven Sages, after Link is killed, they make their last-ditch effort and go, screw it, we'll seal him within the Sacred Realm, and it's corrupted, and...
and that's when the whole... Crap, what was the game that we first mentioned here?
Link to the Past, I think.
Oh, A Link to the Past. That's when A Link to the Past occurs.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That takes place sometime after the events of Ocarina of Time. I know for listeners, the Legend of Zelda's timeline is quite confusing. I would even say that despite my studying of it, that even I don't fully understand it. And when I don't
think it's meant to be fully understood. Honestly, I think they just kind of made games and threw them wherever, and it ended up the way it ended up.
I think that it was because of popular demand for a coherent timeline.
Which is why they made one in the first place.
Yes, so I don't really think that when developing these games that a coherent timeline was in their brain when developing these games, except in Skyward Sword, because soon after Skyward Sword came out, Hyrule Historia was released, which established the timeline.
I see. I could totally see that, because, it doesn't seem like any of the other games had any... cared about the timeline at all. Not
really, except with minor exceptions. Like Majora's Mask was an intentional sequel to Ocarina of Time, and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks were an intentional sequel to The Wind Waker, and eventually they just needed to make a timeline for it, but it's very messy and confusing.
Yeah.
Fans are pretty angry.
What do you think about that trailer for the next Zelda game?
I am extremely excited, and I've watched several theory videos on it.
Yeah?
I'm very excited to see who might be Ganondorf himself, to finally see him. There's a theory that went around by, I don't remember the YouTuber, I apologize, but there's basically this idea that the Ganon that we saw and defeated was a sort of puppet that Ganondorf was operating.
Oh, I see.
It wouldn't be the first time he's done it.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, Puppet Zelda.
I'm also very excited to be able to see Zelda has her hair very short and Link's hair is very long, so swapping of gender roles there.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, to be honest. And, that Ganon thingy, whatever it was, that is just so creepy.
Well, he appears to be sealed. And we see,
it kind of looks like he's like the rock Ganon that's at the bottom of the sea from Wind Waker, to be honest. It kind of looks like that.
Kinda, but he's not rocky. But I think it was green swirling things that were around his body in the trailer. That was actually Gerudo text. And someone managed to translate parts of it, one of which says, Seal Ganon.
That's interesting. I kind of want to, I'm excited for a continuation of that. Like, now that Breath of the Wild, I feel, is a great place to get into the series if you've never played it before, because, like, you got the story of Breath of the Wild and you don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. And it seems like they're continuing within that story, so it feels like they're going to be consistent from now on. Like, this is the story of Breath of the Wild, we're going to continue along that storyline, and it's just going to keep going that way. And I don't know how long they'll keep going on this timeline or this story, but I hope they keep going pretty well.
They'll probably label it as a reboot. Who knows?
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. But it's a good reboot. I like it because, the old one is very, very confusing and mishmash.
Yeah, I was very happy, and as were a lot of fans, that after the absolute mess and disaster of gameplay that was Skyward Sword, the drawback from the fans and everything, that they're like, okay, we're going to stop making a very hand-holdy Zelda and just go full out open world.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have to beat Breath of the Wild still.
I think they learned their lesson, but let's see if they keep it up in the sequel.
Yep, we'll see. All right, so I'm Kira.
I'm Rose.
And if you want to look at Game Theorem's social media, we have Twitter and everything.
As do I, as mentioned earlier, Lumpen_Rose.
And I hope you had a good time with us going over Legend of Zelda.
Kyle will be back soon.
Yep. All right. Bye.